Welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Michael McDowd. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question. Today's trivia theme, miscellaneous trivia. I always wonder what you do, Mike. Now, the audience on the radio can't see what you're doing, but you're doing like a wave.
Yeah, I'm doing the old roller coaster, whatever this is. I just feel it. And I gotta get the energy going, especially when you got a guy coming up who we're going to introduce in a second. But yeah, it's sports, for God's sakes. It's not brain surgery, so we got to have some fun, right? Do the sprinkler.
Yeah, we always said the show was like a bunch of guys sitting around talking sports and business with the audience listening in. And we're going to have Coach Matt Driscoll, coming on pretty soon here. But we got to make sure also to talk about the Padres. Is this going to be the year that they're actually going to I mean, they've been to the World Series at least once. Was it once or twice?
Well,
they lost.
They lost to Steve Garvey was played. They lost. I think once, to my knowledge.
Yeah. I still remember where I was.
And by the way, this is a short tease, but I have a pretty serious connection with Padres, and I'm going to save it for the show. But I got to tell you about that.
All right. Because even our San Francisco Giants with Buster Posey coming on as a general manager, they sort of turned the season around already. And I know it's been really early, but what are they, like 10-3?
Yeah. In fact, again, this is a tease part of our show, but the Giants have the second best record at 12-4. Padres are 14-3.
It's early.
Okay.
It's early.
All right. All right. A little early. All right. That was our guest that we're going to introduce in the next segment. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown along with Mike McDowd. Mike, please introduce our guest who's been on our show once before.
And he sure has. He's one of the all-time great guys, the best. His name is Matthew Driscoll. He is the head basketball coach. I don't know if he's got a new title as well. With the NIL stuff going on at the University of Florida, he's probably he's the head basketball coach. He's Matthew. I mean, listen, I don't even want to get into this yet, but 16th, just finished your 16th year. We had you at the beginning of the season, of course, the Ospreys at the University of North Florida playing the ASUN Conference. And Matthew is one of the guys. He is the guy at this school that leads this team. He's one of the most approachable human beings you'll ever meet for a person in high-level athletics. I believe he's given his phone number out to how many thousands of students, Matthew?
It's over 50,000, probably by now 16 years, probably closer to 75, 80,000.
And he's not kidding you, because he does that because he came
904-383-2786. You can have it. 904-383-2786.
And Matthew, you do it for a reason, because I got to be honest.
Yeah.
I've known Coach for a few years, and he came to my men's group at our church and gave a phenomenal talk. And he is a guy that will go out of his way to help others. And I think that's the secret. His secret to his success. He's not just a head basketball coach, but he's a guy that truly cares about humanity. He cares about his players. He loves his wife, his family, and I got to tell you, Matthew, of all the college coaches I've dealt with in my career, you are by far the top of the list as far as being the most pleasurable. Thank you for joining the show. We're thrilled to have you. We go around the country, border to border, coast to coast, and overseas with our U.S. military. So a lot of people are going to be listening to you. We're so happy to have you again, and just thank you so much.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind. Second of all, we actually do something really powerful from a military perspective. We do a thing called Soldiers to Sidelines. And so it started out as football, the word sidelines. And they were when soldiers were coming back and they were leaving the military and kind of finding their way again, so to speak, in normal society. They were helping them become football because they wanted a lot of coach. Well, at COVID, basketball came into play. And so we've got a lot of coaches that we've helped that are soldiers, help them transition into that basketball. So for those out there listening, if there's anything like that from the soldiers of the sideline, you look at a very powerful organization and a lot of good. You know, it's interesting you guys got business in sports because obviously the last time we talked, it's even become even that much more to the forefront take place in athletics. And because of that, when we talked, you know, we were getting, and we did something this year at the beginning of the year that no one in college basketball history, so this is pretty cool for your show, no one in college basketball history ever beat two Power 4 road teams in the first week in true road games from a level like ours, and beating South Carolina and Georgia Tech in the first calendar week, Monday and Sunday. And so because of that, you go to Chaz Lanier, who was at Tennessee, ended up winning the Jerry West Award, played for us for 4 years. And right after we beat South Carolina and Georgia Tech, he made 6 threes in the first half against Baylor down in the Bahamas. And so all of a sudden, Chaz Lanier, North Florida, and everybody's like, North Florida, they just beat South Carolina and Georgia Tech. Well, they must have some more good players. Well, we were the preseason favorite to win the league last year until the portal opened. And now we got one guy who's on campus at Purdue as we speak. We got one guy who's on campus at Indiana as we speak. Rutgers, I just got off the phone with him. One guy who's going to visit Miami on Thursday. And another guy that just signed at East Tennessee State for 6 digits. And so
you're like a feeder, you know, to other schools.
Well, I don't like to use that word. I don't like to. What I like to say is that goes along with what you guys say is our job is to pour into these young men and make them as good a men, as good as potential husbands, fathers, if that's in the cards. But we get fired for losing. So you got to pour into them and just develop them and develop them and develop them. Well, when you develop them and other people see that and they know coming from our program, they're going to get a great student. They're going to get a great human being. They're not perfect, but they're really good human beings. And so we've really have lost 4 guys that we'd be picked to win the league. And now we got 4 really good ones coming in. We got 7 returning. So that's 11. And so now we're trying to sign 3 guys. Like, for instance, the one kid made 104 threes, shot 43% from 3. He's the best available shooter in basketball. And he's at Purdue right now. And he's been playing for 5 years. He's got a degree from Columbia. But how does a kid like that turn down $300,000, $400,000, $500,000? Like, you can't turn that down.
No.
And I love him, and he loves me. We just had a very emotional time last week. But that's our job. That's our job. Pour in, make them the best version of them.
Matt, you remind me of like a chiropractor who does such a good job that he gets himself out of a job because he fixes people, like a doctor, Wow, that is pretty tough. How many students in the undergrad at North Florida?
About 18,000. Our goal is 25,000 by 28. So we've just done over, in my time there, guys, we've done over almost $750 million in construction.
Wow. I can see where
we've only been here since 72, guys.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I can imagine that, because of who you are and who you pour into these kids, when word gets around like that, I would think that there'd be a fair amount of parents who have a really good basketball, where they kind of look and they go, okay, you might go into the pros, you might get looks, but we really want someone who's going to invest in you. You're shaking your head. No, does that not happen?
Well, Mike knows where I'm going to go with this. And so many people are being led by the wrong people
Yeah.
that are looking at things through the wrong lens.
Yeah.
And instead of saying what you just said,
Yeah.
that and money, I get it. Some people need money. Some people, 50,000, they don't really need it. They could do away with it. But like, you're a business podcast, right?
Sports
Show, right?
with sports show with
But
a
in your
business.
business, that's my point. Well, this is a business.
Yeah.
And so you should be making business decisions. And my point is, you got a Chaz Lanier, almost 7 digits, if not more, and then Josiah Miles making over $500,000. You would think your son would be like, I need to go there, get their tutelage, be poured into as a man, understand how you can love on your wife and love on your children, yada yada yada, and then whatever transpires. But we're struggling to find that guy, which is crazy.
I hear you. Tell you what, let's go to our first commercial trivia question break here. And if, as a reminder, Coach, if you know the answer, don't say anything quite yet. What luxury brand has a gold crown as its logo? That's our trivia question. Email Edward at SportsEcon101 the answer to that question. What luxury brand has a gold crown as its logo? All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowd and our special guest, Coach Matthew Driscoll. First trivia question. What luxury brand has a gold crown as its logo? All right, Mike, you get one guess. Coach gets 3 guesses.
I mean, that's certainly not fair because I know the answer, I'm pretty sure, but I'm going to be I want to say a smart ass. Crown Royal. I know that's not the right answer.
That's
I
not
know
a
the
luxury
answer.
brand per se. All right, Matt.
It was a joke. It
Is
wasn't
that
my
the
answer.
answer? Was that the answer?
No, it's
No.
not. I don't want to spoil
So
you.
I was going to.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Coach.
The only thing I could think of right away when you said a crown as its logo was LeBron James, which ends up being Burger King. So I'm going to say Burger King.
No, it's a luxury brand, and no offense to Burger King. Go ahead, Mike.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Rolex.
You are correct.
Oh,
Rolex.
hey, it's coming from. You're talking to a guy that don't wear a watch.
Yeah, right here.
Don't wear a watch. I don't wear a watch.
I know, I put my cell phone on my wrist like that. It's a little big, but yeah, I'm not a jewelry guy, except for my wife says, make sure you wear your wedding ring.
Gosh darn it. Man, I should have got that. Because they do a good job branding. They do a good job branding usually at the Formula One, especially those city races like Miami, Vegas, and stuff. Yeah. Rolex does a great job with Van Strappen and those guys.
Let me tell you just a break, Mike, before you let me just say a really quick thing. So this is how much I don't wear watches, never have. Back in the 80s when Rolex was the big to do, I was kind of a top salesman in this business I was doing. And so I won not only one, but 2 Rolex watches. And they said, you have a choice. You can get the Rolex watches, or you can take the cash. I said, I will take the cash. What am I going to do with one, let alone 2 Rolex watches? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, head coach Matthew Driscoll, University of North Florida, our special guests are really one of the all-time great guests we've had on this show. And, Coach, by the way, speaking of Rolex watches, if Coach Driscoll's team was all afforded Rolex watches, how much influence would that have on a player coming to North Florida? Because those bad boys are about 50,000 each?
No, they're not that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
More than that?
maybe.
No?
I think those kind of things are really, really difficult. I think I'm just talking to so many coaches right now that are recruiting our guys, and we're really good about that because we want our guys to be successful that are leaving. Chaz is a good example. But the problem is, Mike, is you also got a locker room. And so, for instance, if you're paying me $400,000 and I'm the lead guard, and you're paying this other guy 1.5 million and this other guy 2.5 million, and you want me to give them the ball, like there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. And then next thing you know, you got people that are jealous. And here's another good one. This happened this year in college basketball. How about the guy you're paying $2 million to and he doesn't pan out?
Yeah.
The nastiness and what people said to that kid and what people direct message to that kid it's sickening. So, these kids want paid and I'm not against it. But, with that comes a lot that people just don't realize.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach. So listen, we had you on the beginning of the season. I didn't want to bother you during the season because I know how you are. I know you're beyond focused, and you do a great job. You try to prepare your kids as best as possible. You got some huge wins. We can tell just by your voice the energy, the passion. You were feeling it. So as the season progresses and you have those wins, and I know they're just games, one game at a time, but surely you must have felt like this team had some juice and some energy to get this thing going to win the ASUN conference. What was it? What's your assessment?
So you're 100%. You are like spot on. We thought during the summer that we were picked whatever. We're going to be 7th, I think, is where we finished, and we were picked. And I thought, you know what? They picked us 11th last year. We finished 5th. We're picking us 7th this year. We're going to win the conference. That was how my mindset is. And so you think about that as your team, and then next thing you know, you beat South Carolina, you beat Georgia Tech, you have a heck of a game against Georgia, and then all of a sudden, the wheels fell off. And all of a sudden, you're like, okay, how many guys are being approached by agents? 8 guys raise their hand. Even a kid that's redshirted, that's 7 foot tall, raises his hand.
Isn't that
it's legal? Yeah, it's legal.
Okay.
And so all these dudes are now starting to get all this information. We can get you here. We can get you here. We can get you here. So we had to work our tail off to get that out of their heads and get them back. And we did. We started out 0-3 in the league. Then we went 6-2 the next 8. And we thought we were rolling. And then all of a sudden, this happens and that happens, and we lose 6 games that are 2-possession games. And so, in my opinion, we should have been what you said and had a higher level and a higher competitiveness. But there's just so much going at these kids and just, promises, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so how do you blame an 18 to 22-year-old kid? Like, they've never seen this kind of money before.
Well, literally, Matt, you play in the ASUN Conference, Lipscomb, North Alabama. North Alabama had 24-11. That's insane for them. Florida Gulf Coast, Jacksonville, EKU, Queens, Austin Peay, Stetson, Central, West Georgia. So, listen, with this kind of money, how is a conference like the ASUN going to even survive? Is that a fair question?
Well, some people, but it's a great question. You need to know this. Some people have money. Some people were able to give guys money. Now, what's the truth? What's perception versus reality? I can't tell you because I'm not on their staffs, but we heard there were some players getting 6 digits, and they were some of the better players in the league. But I think now those guys will be getting maybe 400,000 or 500,000 to move up. So this little 1 year window of guys being able to buy guys or have guys. So our league, there were teams that did. There were teams like us that give, a lot of teams give what's called the Alston Award and then cost of attendance. And so a lot of teams do that. So that's fair level ground. But once you're given, in this case, NIL or collective over the top of it, so yeah. So the A-Sun's going to, like Jakari Lane went to Texas A&M. Jake Ognisevich went to Washington. Our guys, like we got 3 guys that are probably going to go Power 5. So there's a lot of good players. And that's why the tournament, guys, was so 1, 2, and 3 seed heavy. Like I crushed the tournament in my bracket. I had 14 out of 16, 8 out of 8, all 4 Final Fours, and I had Florida. But I had to blame Duke. But I wasn't.
I wasn't very. I mean, it was an exciting final game, but there was only like a couple of plays where you looked and you said, "Wow," a real wow. A lot of it was just.
Well, there was only a couple games like that. McNeese State might have been the only team anybody talked about that crushed Clemson. And just so you know, there's not going to be any more of that kind of stuff, or I shouldn't say that, very little upsets. Because everybody's going to buy the best ride. I just got done talking with a Power 5 coach, guys. I had to hang up to get over to you. Like, everybody's overpaying. They're paying Mike $500,000. They're paying you $700,000. Then they're coming back and they're coming to Mike and saying, Mike, I'll give you $7. And like Mike was going to take $5, but yeah, I'll take $7.
Yeah.
So everybody's overpaying for talent that's not good enough. Maybe.
Well, Coach, go ahead, Edward. One thing's interesting. Edward and I, came from the Bay Area, San Francisco, and I think it's really a kind of an interesting comparison. You take University of North Florida, you take University of California, Berkeley, who all this rich tradition and history. But you know what? I'm going to say it as a lifelong Bear fan. Cal stands for constantly, always losing. Okay, so I said that, not you. But and yet they can't even find a big Silicon Valley or legacy donor to really step up to take them. So how is North Florida? I know you have a great donor, but that helped the basketball program. But you follow what I'm saying. Then we're going to take a break.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to a break and we'll let Coach to answer that. All right, ready? Let's see if we can get this one. What common spice is actually a hallucinogen? What common spice is actually a hallucinogen? All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. Mike's going to get this when we get back. All right.
Question.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown along with Mike McDowd, our special guest, Coach Matthew Driscoll. And our second trivia question, what common spice is actually a hallucinogen?
So I thought you
guys?
said, I was going to say mushroom, but that was too easy of an answer. It's not a spice. I'm going to say paprika.
No, but I think that's kind of close though. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, paprika, really?
It's not the answer though.
No. Like cloves?
Oh,
no, I would have thought that too. Nutmeg.
I was close.
used to use it all the time during Christmas.
Okay.
Nutmeg is nice.
No wonder those kids looked a whole lot better than they were.
So did we.
Exactly. And when you have the eggnog, it's like, no wonder everyone's in a happy mood.
Yeah. Hey,
go ahead, Mike. Ask your question again.
Coach, let me re-ask the question. So we made a comparison, University of California, Berkeley, and I made the smart ass remark of what Cal stands for, constantly, always losing. I have a soft spot in my heart for them. I don't really mean that. But, North Florida, where you are at, in Jacksonville, Florida. You've had, I know, a major sponsor step up to help the program. But without these types of major sponsors, and this applies to any Power Five school, and Cal's a good example. If you don't have those people, those alums stepping up, I don't know how
So,
programs
first of
compete
all,
anymore.
when I first got the job 16 years ago, they used to say UNF means you never finish. And that used to really, really piss me off. We've graduated every single kid. And so the day I went to do a donors thing was at the plantation, which is right down the street. It was about 2 months on the job. I wrote on a post-it easel, I wrote urgency never fails. And if anybody ever jokes to me about you never finished, I go right back at them with, actually, it's urgency never fails. Because if you have an urgency about what you're doing, you're going to get done. Now, you might have some stumbling blocks along the way. So when these donors are starting to come in, like right now, we're building a new locker room. And so, like, people only have so much money to do so much. And so as our university continues to grow, a lot of things you're going to see schools start to cut off like programs. They're going to start cutting out programs. They're going to start making programs, club programs, so that they can have a better budget for this revenue sharing, so that they can disperse the money to the programs that are going to bring in the most revenue. And so I think there's going to be a lot of athletes along the way that are going to be left out. I think there's going to be a lot of conference reshuffling again. And I think the bigger boys, Cal, for instance, I think those guys are going to break off and eventually be their own entity. And there'll be a new governing body. And I think the NCAA will go away. And I think there's going to be it's going to be a professional, semi-pro, even if you go to school, you go to school. If you don't, you don't. Type of thing. I think it's going to end up getting to all that. I think we're 5 to 7.
How many years away do you think that'll be?
Just think about how fast this went. The transfer portal started in 2018, and in 7 years, it's now a multi-million-dollar business for players. And when it started, it was to help guys be able to be seen or to be noticed or to be recognized to go to another school. And now it's a there's dudes going in the portal that shouldn't be in the portal. You know, they're taking a risk.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember in the quote old days, they used to say, you shouldn't pay these college players because if you're giving them a scholarship to go to college, that's effectively paying them.
Yeah, but if you look at the amount of hours they put in, and you look at the amount of work and then community service, and then going and doing stuff for the university and all this stuff over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, there's definitely some worth to it. I'm not against paying athletes. I'm not against any of that stuff. Somehow, we've got my wife actually, you'd love this. She's actually doing a paper right now, and she's actually starting her own governance was the project. And how do you get the transfer portal? Like, how do you get that thing harnessed in? How do you governance? How do you get a collective bargaining? How do you do all this stuff and make this much, much more palatable, so to speak? And so she's actually writing a paper on it. For instance, Purdue gets our kid. They pay him, let's say $500,000. I'm just throwing a number, $500,000. They got to give us 3% as well, like the Premier Soccer League does. So we get a transfer fee. So they got to pay us. What's 3% of 500,000? What, 15,000? They got to pay us. They got to pay us $15,000. So we actually get some money that we can use for whatever. So, that's an idea.
Okay, hey, Coach Matthew Driscoll, our very special guest here on Sports Econ 101, heard coast to coast, border to border, and around the world. Hey, Coach, all right, here we are, April
by the way. We ought to say it's tax day.
2025 AD, by the way. Yeah, it is. Thanks for reminding me. So let's say 5 years ago, maybe that's too soon. Maybe 6 years ago, did you feel just a few short years ago that no, these kids are coming to get their education? You just articulated, yes, they put in a lot of hours at practice, school, community service, etc. But has the paradigm shifted so much that you just dramatically changed, or because the saying was no, we're coming here to get an education, but things have just it's not even the same world. So have you had to
Yeah.
change because of that,
Oh,
or
oh
are you
yeah,
still a big
oh yeah,
believer in
yeah. Our
education, which I
guys,
know you are, but you
yeah,
follow.
our guys 3.55. Our guys, you screw up, you're going to be suspended. Our guys like getting like going to class is called learning. Going to college is called education. So when you say going to get your education, that's the whole kit and caboodle, in my opinion. Going to class to learn and to understand what's out there and what this looks like and how this is going to completely be with you for the rest of your life. And so, yes, it's a huge, and it will be. But to your point, when they first made it a multi-transfers were eligible automatically, like it's so hard to get kids eligible to be in school because they have to have so many hours based on this project's toward degree. So there's so much, like kids are going to take majors now if they really could care less about it. So because all they want to be, they just want to play and get paid. And so that whole part of the education system is also, being thrown around too. So from the academia part of it, like I just we've got to continue to really press upon these young people that they've got to continue that learning curve and that learning understanding, that they're not just there to become whatever so they can move on to see now they can, we have kids that are going to their fourth, fifth, sixth school. And so like you can go to that many schools, like who's going to be your home school when you're 35 and you're going to have your first child? Like, where are you going to bring them?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. It's like, because you're going on 16, 17 years teaching. How often have you had some of your first couple of years players come back
Yeah, all the
and,
time.
thank
A
you
lot of new
and tell you
babies.
how they're doing?
One of our kids, his son is a big time athlete in 8th grade. So eventually you could coach him. A lot of our guys are coaching. A lot of our players live in the area. Some of them are millionaires. Some of them are working in the workforce and really being productive in society. And so I'm in contact with those. I pray for them every Sunday, every single person that's come through those classes. I pray for them every Sunday. And so, yeah, it's a really cool family. And it'll always be that way. Even the guys that are leaving. I got I got no, like you poured into us, you did the best you could for us. Like, how can we fault you for wanting to go, do this? So yeah, it is what it is. And I tell you guys this too. It's a beautiful sport. It's a beautiful industry. But that house settlement, that, if you ask me, Mike, your question earlier, that is what has completely transformed. Like the Tennessee quarterback, I'll give you this example. I'll give you an example, though.
Yes.
He probably went about it the wrong way. His people went about it the wrong way. Whatever you want to say, he's 18 to 22 years old. But there's at least 20 coaches this year, probably closer to 50, whose agents were doing the same thing all year long. And a lot of those coaches got way better jobs than they have now and are getting paid a lot more money. It's not public like this kid is. So no, I just think it's unfortunate, but that kid's going to be made an example of because he's the first one to ever do it. And in a year from now, like he's going to be like the dude, like, oh yeah, he started it, but there's going to be so many of them you're not even going to be able to name them. Because if there's no contract, no collective bargaining, what are you going to hold them to?
Wow. Well, the question is, I know your predecessor, your colleague down in Gainesville did really well. He won a national championship, young guy, Coach Golden. And but from your perspective and your level, we're talking money here. This is a business sports show. How much more? I mean, I know one of the
100%.
things you play one of the toughest schedules in America for a school of your size. Okay, and one of your jobs is to coach and to win basketball games in the conference and outside the conference. But what I also know about you, and you mentioned you're the revenue producer. Okay, so here's a question: is it more important to produce revenue and play those big money teams? Okay, of course it is, but how important is it also that including winning like an
eventually
ASUN
they'll let me go. Because if you just, Jeff Fisher is a good example, right?
Can't do that.
Mr. 500. So, like, you play these games, you bring in this money, and then you beat a couple of them, right? So now nobody wants to play you. But this revenue and about $300,000 in premium seating for our home games, all this revenue comes in, but it supports the 19 sports that we have. And so I'm balking. I have over 100 losses on my resume.
Right.
It's hard for me to get a job. I mean, if my shirt said Florida, not North Florida, well, then it'd be a little bit different. And so I got all these losses, but it helps our sports athletic department. It helps our sports. It helps with trainers. It helps with strength coaches. It helps with mental health. It helps with academia. It helps with everything.
All around. Yeah, hey,
I can't say you. So all you
hold on 2
guys are
seconds. Get
clean.
to a quick break here. What was the original color? Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, what was the original color of the Eiffel Tower? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike McDowell and Coach Driscoll. Okay, last trivia question. What was the original color of the Eiffel Tower? And Coach knows the answer. Go ahead.
Pewter?
No.
Pewter?
What?
No. The original color was red. And it's Venetian red, if you want to get specific.
Why?
That was the original color of the Eiffel Tower. Isn't that crazy? I don't. You're asking me questions I don't know the answers
I'm thinking
to.
so. Flame
I don't
wouldn't
know
hit it,
why.
maybe. I don't know.
I just know.
Hey, in 5 seconds, guys. Big week. I think this says a lot. You got to pray. You got to pray just to make it today. I want to wish everybody a wonderful Holy Week and a blessed, happy Easter to all three of you, to all two of you. Actually, there's three of us, but you know what I mean.
All right.
Yeah. So thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
And, Coach, awesome. And here, let me give you our thoughts for the day because you'll like these. You ready? So, if laziness was an Olympic sport, I would come in fourth place just so I wouldn't have to walk up to the podium. Not bad, huh? And yesterday, man, I had a really bad day. First, my ex got run over by a bus, and then I got fired from my job as a bus driver. A good one. Okay, there we go. We got a couple of laughs out of them. All right, Coach Matthew Driscoll from the University of North Florida. Thank you again for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on. We're going to have you back on again. Mike, any last words? All right. Audience, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Happy Easter, military and America.